short answer is yes, it is okay to suck. Well, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Tiernan Moore, and I've grown up in Wyoming and just recently moved to Colorado. I'm a solo musician that started making my own music on an iPhone on GarageBand 8 years ago. And since then, I've made 2 albums, a handful of singles, as well as a music video and a bunch of cover art. Growing up as a musician in my context, I was lucky enough to have a support system around me, my friends, and my family. And I want to acknowledge that that's not the case for many people. However, it's not to say that I didn't have people that acted like obstacles. Starting 8 years ago on an iPhone, on GarageBand, making crappy music in my bedroom to post on Facebook only really kind of showed the interest and drive that I had in music back then, especially given the fact of how horrible the music was. Before I even started posting on YouTube, I made like 28 or 9 instrumentals that sounded bad, and not only that, but I didn't even name them. They were named instrumental and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but all I wanted to do was just post music. I know I wanted to make music, and I was really, really interested in it. I was lucky enough to post music that sounded horrible only because I didn't actually know how horrible it was back then. I was so oblivious to know that my music didn't sound good back then, and it was only because I was the only person in my school, let alone pretty much town at that age, doing what I did. And because of that, I had the drive to keep going and make something even better every single time I posted something. Shortly after that, I started YouTube on 2016. There, I continued my journey into making instrumentals. I think around the time I joined YouTube, I was still working on instrumental 19, and then all the way to like 27. But then after that, I kept recording and kept recording. I kept doing a lot of covers, and all of this was still being recorded on my phone with a little device called an iRig. But then shortly after I was making those stupid videos in my room of me making silly faces to instrumental 26, I started to really get into making my stuff sound as good as possible. Not really arrangement-wise, I wasn't there yet. But mainly when it came to mixing. At this point in time, I was really getting interested in the mixing process. I was learning about things like plugins. I didn't know how compression worked. I didn't know how EQ worked. And hitting that little graphic EQ, doing all these bips and boops that I didn't know what I was doing on this little small iPhone with 3 EQ bands, it was weird. All of this to say I didn't know what I was doing. But I was so focused on making something sound as good as I possibly could because I was so blinded by the fact that I was the only person doing it around that time. And that was the only reason why I kept going. I bet you if there was somebody around me doing it better than what I was doing, I probably would have given up. This was happening well into high school as well as after high school. Directly after high school, I went straight into college. I still, at that point, wasn't even posting on streaming services yet. It was all just my YouTube channel of like 60 subscribers. Not that I have many more, but but shortly after I joined college, as a freshman in 2020, I made my first EP called Shimmer. And here's the thing about Shimmer. It was ass. At least that's what I think. It really sucked. The mixing was terrible. The mastering was even worse. The performance was bad. I was still at singing. Needless to say, I sounded horrible. But I still posted it. And that's the exact same thing that I did for like 5 years before that time. I made shitty music and I posted it on my Facebook page. And then shortly after on YouTube. And then shortly after on Spotify and other streaming services. But again, the only reason why I kept going at that time was because I was the only person in my town doing that, to the extent that I was doing it, to say. And ever since I first started doing that, all the way back 8 years ago, I prided myself on making the best music that I could to my ability, every single song that I could do, and I only got better every single time. I did my own drums, I did my own vocals, I did my own bass, guitar, backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. But again, nobody was doing it, so I kept going. All of this to say that I was in a position where I only kept going because I didn't really have any competition. So what does that mean for me? Why am I making this video in the first place? Well, I want to acknowledge that of course was a blessing in disguise, but it also goes to show that if you have that mindset, no matter what context you are in, if you have obstacles, if you have people that don't like what you're doing, if you straight up just don't give a and just focus on yourself and progressing every single time and every single chance that you get, then your music will sound better than it ever has before. I know it's easier said than done, but when it comes down to it, it takes time. It took me 8 going on 9 years so far to get where I am now, and even then, I think I'm still mediocre. But at this point now, I am glad to say that I have music that I am proud of. And that's a thing that not a lot of people have. So when you make music or art or anything like that, comparing yourself is the gateway drug to making yourself quit what you're doing right there. If you have colleagues that are better than you, that are doing these things that you want to do, and you just aren't at their level yet, keep going. Because if you stop, you're only going to wish that you've ever gotten to that point, rather than actually getting there. So is it okay to suck then? Not only yes, is it okay to suck, but I think it's essential to suck in order to grow. Back when I was making my starting music, I knew that it didn't sound good. I knew that it didn't sound as professional as the music that I loved to listen to around that time. Did that stop me from making it? Absolutely not. Because I was proud of the fact that I was able to do the little things. I was able to make sure that I could make it sound a certain way, whether or not I did have friendly competition or people that I knew that were doing the same thing. I know that I am living proof that comparing yourself to other colleagues only brings you down. You'll stop right in your tracks. So if there's anything that I want you to do, I want you to want to suck. Get your mind out of the gutter. I want you to want to make shitty product. I want you to want to do it wrong. And one of the only ways that you'll be able to want to suck is if you have discipline. And I would like to talk about discipline in another video. But regardless, aim to suck and don't be afraid to miss.